Okay, we're happy to have our second meeting of the year. We're continuing to work on our winter and spring project management symposium, which will serve as a replacement for the fall symposium that we normally have in Silver Spring in October. Virtual access will be free for all valid members. Our Zoom technology allows up to 500 participants, so we look forward to having as many members who are interested in attending. For old chapter members, our chapter scholarship applications will be released this week. For new members, we offer 2 scholarships, one to open to family members of the chapter, and the other just open to high school seniors that qualify with our application. For those who were at our October PMI dinner simulcast at Normandy Farm or here on Zoom, our speaker donated a $1,000 scholarship. We're holding off on the application because we're trying to iron that out to make sure that there's no issues with that. So we look forward to getting that out this week. High school guidance counselors will get it. With this trying year for our graduating seniors in 2021, every scholarship helps. So. We open up our election cycle. We receive single candidates for each. We're happy to welcome back 3 of the board members who decided to come back, and then we welcome Mr. Manoj Singh, who will be serving as our Vice President of Education Certification. So we look forward. We have a great high energy board this year, and we look forward to doing good things for our members. Seminars World, it runs at the end of this month. This is one of PMI's signature speaking events. It's usually face-to-face in different parts of the country. This is carrying over from the virtual concept in 2020 to at least 2021, even though they hope to have a in-person Seminars World in the fall. So our speakers for the February event include Lisa and David from Leadership Techniques, Mr. Carl Pritchard, and Dr. Martins, all who have spoke to our chapter members on multiple occasions. The Project Management Day of Service is coming up here in a few weeks. Registration is still open. The $20 early bird pricing has been extended. All the nonprofit spots are filled, which is great news because that means there's a lot of eager nonprofits who are looking forward to learning from
the volume's low.
Their project management counterparts. Beth May is on the leadership team and on the call here. Miss May, did you kind of want to throw out a sales pitch and then introduce a couple of the nonprofits that have already signed up this year, just so our members can see what type of organizations they'd be working with?
Oh, you took me by surprise. I'm not sure I can name the nonprofit. Oh, I can name a few. The registration was supposed to close last Sunday, the 31st, but it is, in fact, as Matt mentioned, still open. It will be open for another day or so. It's closing on Friday. I don't know exactly what time. So if you still haven't registered and you still want to, I recommend doing it before Friday, because registration will close on Friday. We left it open almost an extra week. And as Matt indicated, it is still at the early bird $20. We did not increase the registration fee. So a couple of the nonprofits who will be there are repeat clients: Peripheral Neuropathy Support Network, Asian American Center of Frederick, Career Catchers, Loudon Cares, and some a lot of repeat clients, and some new Words Heal is a new client, and some other new clients. We do have a couple of PMs participating from outside of the DC region, and I think we have a couple of nonprofits outside of the DC region, but mostly it's nonprofits from within the DC region. And it is a virtual event on WebEx, Cisco WebEx, and you can find the registration at pmforchange.org. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. And a lot of our chapters have participated in years past. This is the 6th or 7th year, Ms. May.
7th year. This is
Okay.
our 7th annual. Yep.
So we look forward to having a good representation from our chapter. To kick off the year, a lot of our fellow chapter members set education and training goals, either to get their PGMP or maybe the Agile Certified Practitioner certification, maybe more into the Scrum framework. So all of our education partners are offering great virtual training opportunities, most of which are at a discounted price. So if your company has an education allowance for the year, and don't let that go to waste. And if you check our website in the calendar, you'll see opportunities, or reach out to a board member and they can make some recommendations. We know that with the exam transitioning a little bit, and we're getting closer to the 7th edition of the PMBOK coming out, the PMP exam is going to change. A lot of our coworkers and peers and are looking to get the certification, so we look forward to getting as much guidance out on what's changing, as well as in our program schedule the rest of the year, having at least 1 or 2 presentations on the changes both to the test and the PMBOK. Okay, that takes care of any chapter business. Any questions from members? We fielded a few inquiries about the January PDUs. We'll check back with PMI on that and what the holdup is. So hopefully we'll have a resolution to that this week. Okay, it's our pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening, Ms. Michelle Hutchings-Medina. We actually share in common that we both got our Certified Professional Coaching certification from IPEC, the Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching. So it's always good to have a fellow IPEC grad in the house. With emotional intelligence being one of those 21st century hot topics, and in thought leadership, Ms. Hutchings-Medina has really embraced that and got her practitioner professional certification, as well as her energy leadership index. She brings 25 plus years in management and leadership positions, mostly within the medical industry, specializing in sales and training. And we look forward to a high energy presentation this evening. We will be using our breakout room feature. This will be seamless. We're looking at breakout rooms of no larger than 7. Right now we have close to 80 people on, so there'll be 11 or 12, and she'll give us instructions on what the outbriefs will be like, so we can make sure everybody provides input and everybody has a role. So without further ado, welcome, Michelle.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me pretty good?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Well, it is such a pleasure to be here with you all. And I know it's probably kind of hard at night, but we're gonna make this fun, interactive, and exciting. So first, we want to start out with a little poll. Matt, did you get my polling questions? Matt?
Yep, pulling it up now.
Yep. We're going to start out with a little poll, kind of get the energy up and get everyone participating. And I kind of want to see what kind of group I'm working with tonight. So when we do this poll, I'll have a better idea of how you guys are, how fun you are. I see that a lot of cameras are off, which is okay. It might be nice to have turn your camera on, particularly in the breakout rooms, but again, it's not required, but I would love to see your smiling faces. And I did notice that when my pictures were put up, apparently you guys went out and scooped some pictures off the internet, huh?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry about that.
I said, whoa, I didn't send them that picture. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out with a poll. And what I would like to know is the poll feature up yet?
Pretty close. I logged into another device to do a tech check, and that messed up the thing, but I'm fixing
Okay,
it.
that's okay. We're all good. We all can be flexible. That's one of our subscales that we're going to cover tonight, flexibility. So while we're waiting for the poll, let's just talk about the course objectives and what you guys will learn tonight. Let me start my presentation.
Yeah, it looks like I accidentally inactivated the poll, so I put it in chat. So I'm tallying up as we go. So
Okay, great. Matt, can you confirm what screen you're seeing here?
you're still in PowerPoint mode, but I see the course objectives. So
Okay.
if you want to go from beginning, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
let me just get rid of these controls. Okay, I got another idea.
So it's looking like option one in full dress attire is about 25%. Option two, at least from camera up, is about 45 to 50%. And then option three is about 15 to 20.
All right, so it sounds like there are some people who work in their PJs sometimes. And I wouldn't be surprised if you were in your PJs right now because of how late it is. I'm not quite sure why my slide is not showing here. I might have to go out of PowerPoint and come back in. I apologize.
While we work on that, as a follow-up question, how many people feel they're more productive when they're dressed to impress for the workday versus still in their lounging wear? Anybody just want to volunteer? Okay, it looks like about the same productivity. So,
all right. Well, I see more cameras on. That's exciting. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the course objectives for today. At the end of the presentation, you'll know a little bit more about EQ. And by the way, I'm using EQ and EI interchangeably. EQ is emotional quotient and EI is emotional intelligence. So I'll be using those interchangeably through the evening. And you'll be able to identify at least 5 factors and how they translate from work and also home. A lot of these components we're going to talk about tonight, really, while you can apply them to the workplace, the reality is they work all the way around through every aspect of your life. And you're also going to discover how you can be more successful if you hone some of these skills. Okay, so what is emotional intelligence? So it's the ability to really check in with your own feelings and also be able to understand the feelings and emotions of others, and then using that information to guide you in your actions and in your thinking. So it's really taking emotions into account at every stage, whether home, work, shopping, whatever. If you become emotionally intelligent, this will impact your life in ways that you can't imagine. What's the business case for this? So more and more organizations are starting to use EI. Like Matt said in the beginning, it's become extremely popular. It is a key determinant of success in leaders and individuals and in teams. They have EQ assessments that can be used in order to give that type of information, and they actually can predict performance. So companies that are doing this are like American Express, the US Air Force, and the Centers for Creative Leadership. So why is emotional intelligence important? Now, I'm hoping that this works because this was a very last minute video that I stuck in here, but I was so excited about it that I wanted to play it for you all. Let's see if it will come up. I may have to reshare my screen. Pause that. Are you guys able to see a video?
Nope. We're seeing your Windows desktop right now. So.
Well,
Oh,
we did, but then you minimized it or moved it or closed it.
Oh, so you were seeing the video. Okay, I was trying to.
We're not going to hear the sound if you didn't check the share sound button when you did your share screen.
Okay. Are you seeing it now?
If you click the play cursor.
I'm sorry.
If you click the play cursor on the far left.
Yes. Yep. Okay. So you can see it. Okay. I just wanted to make sure you see it. Okay. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Since I started writing about and researching emotional intelligence in business, I found that data in support of it has only gotten stronger. I saw recently a study, this surprised me, engineers, software coders, and so on, were evaluated by their peers, people who work with them day to day, on how successful they were at what they do. This turns out to be one of the strongest predictors of success in any field. And that was correlated with their IQ on one hand and their emotional intelligence on the other. IQ correlated zero with their success as rated by peers. Emotional intelligence correlated very, very highly. Well, why would that be? Well, consider this. In order to be an engineer, you have to have an IQ about a standard deviation more above average. That's IQ of about 115 or so. And another recent paper shows that there's no relationship between career success and an IQ above 120. The reason is this: there is a strong floor effect for IQ in any role. All engineers have an IQ of 115 or more. So the range of variance is very reduced for IQ and success. Emotional intelligence, however, varies radically. So emotional intelligence means how well you manage yourself. Can you work toward your goals despite the obstacles? You give up yourself. You have a negative outlook or a positive outlook. These are all emotional intelligence competencies that matter for success. Then there's the relationship competencies. Can you tune into other people? Do you notice other people? I remember hearing about two MIT grads who went into a giant tech company One of them went around to other members of her team and asked, "What are you doing? How can I help?" The other stayed in his office and wrote code all day. And it was very clear who was going to get ahead. It was the one who wanted to be a team player. You don't write code in isolation anymore. Everyone works on projects together. You may write the code, but you have to coordinate, you have to influence, you have to persuade, you have to be a good team member. All of those are emotional intelligence competencies that distinguish outstanding from average performers. So when you think about it that way, it makes sense that even among engineers, emotional intelligence will predict who is a star and who's just mediocre. What's even more important is that the higher you go in the ladder, the more emotional intelligence matters.
So I'm not going to play the whole video, but I thought that was a really good introduction to emotional intelligence. And the gentleman who was delivering the presentation there, his name is Daniel Goleman, and he is one of the founders, one of the foremost, not the founder, but one of the foremost leaders that we have today on the topic of emotional intelligence. Okay, so we're going to go back to our PowerPoint.
Are you using a dual monitor display?
I am.
Okay, so if you just drag it from the one monitor to the other, we should be in business, I think.
I feel like something's just getting stuck. I'm not quite sure what's going on here. So right now, are you seeing the slide that says, why is emotional intelligence important?
We're still on the slideshow view.
You see my desktop.
So if you drag it over from the one monitor, I think we'll be able to see it then.
Yeah, so I have one monitor is my laptop, and the other is a large screen monitor. This happened when we first started, and I literally had to go out and come back in. So sorry, guys. All righty, hopefully we're in business now. All righty, man. So let's talk a little bit about what emotional intelligence is not. So Dr. Goleman gave us a pretty good overview of what it is, but what isn't it? It is not IQ. Oftentimes, this is IQ, the intelligent quotient, is used as a method to determine success. And there are various studies that show, as Dr. Goleman mentioned, that there is no real correlation to predict success based on your IQ. The other point is that IQ is fixed. So it peaks at around 17 years old, stays constant through adulthood, and then starts to wane in older age. Now, the great thing about EQ is that you can continue to refine it and hone it throughout your life. No one is ever too young or too old to refine their emotional intelligence techniques. The other thing is personality. Oftentimes, emotional intelligence is sometimes compared to personality, but your personality is just your unique set of traits that you bring to your thought process. It's a unique set of traits that you bring to how you think and how you feel. And finally, it certainly isn't manipulation, because I've heard people say that also. So it's not manipulation. We're not trying to do mind control here. What we're really just trying to do is to get you to tune in to your emotions, understand the range of emotions that people have. And really the key thing is to really ask yourself when you're through the course of your day, you really take time to ask yourself, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling that way? And then what do I need in order to change that feeling? Oftentimes, you know, we're going through the day so quickly and we're not necessarily checking in with our emotions. And I do believe that as we venture more into the virtual space, it makes it even harder. You know, with COVID, a lot of us are working from behind screens, and sometimes it's very difficult to kind of check in with your emotions. So what I'd like to do now is a little breakout exercise. So we're going to break out into some groups. And what I'd like you to do is to identify your very best boss and your worst boss. So get that thought in your head of who those people might be. And then what I want you to do is to think about the characteristics that made them good or made them bad, and then record the top 3 that you all agree on. And then we're going to have someone report that out. So identify someone to report that out. So good boss, worst boss, and what characteristics would you apply to each one? So are we ready to go to breakouts, Matt?
Yes, ma'am. So there'll be 11 breakout rooms. So we're allowing 10 minutes, correct?
Yes. And should I think, okay, you'll stop the recording, right, during the breakout?
Yep. Okay. So feel free to be open and honest in the breakout session. That's not being recorded, and we'll see everyone in 10 minutes. We'll offer a 2-minute warning here in about 8 minutes. Have fun.
So Matt, I have a question, Michelle. How do you get to the breakout rooms?
You're about to get a notice right now.
Okay.
You're gonna get beamed up.
All right. All right, I got it. Thanks.
And Michelle's back. So team 1 was Brad, Claudia, Francesca, Jack, Jerry, and Kinda. Whoever's the spokesperson, if you want to share room 1 reflections. And Miss Michelle, do you want to bring up the slide so they can use that as a baseline? Or
Michelle, you're on mute.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Okay. Okay. Who wants to start with group 1?
Kinde.
We'll start with the best. We'll start with the best traits.
Okay. So best traits are a boss who gives you feedback,
Mm-hmm.
who also gives you autonomy, and one who goes out to bat for you.
Love it. Love it. All right. Group 2. Best characteristics. Group 2.
so group 2 is
You're
Ann,
on mute.
Beth, Doug, Karen, Crystal.
Karen's on mute.
Sorry about that. The best characteristics were organized, supportive, gets to know their project team and what their contributions can be, and empowering. I have a more list, but maybe I'll stop at 3.
Yeah, that
Okay.
sounds good.
Perfect.
All right, group 3. I was in group 3.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Okay, so group 3, coaching, frequent communication, and constant feedback.
Awesome. Group 4. You might have to remind Matt.
Sure. Group 4 was Emily, Mike, Randy, Marlo, Rajiv, Cynthia.
Don't you all talk at once, group 4?
They may be on mute like I was.
Okay, we can come back to them.
Sorry,
Group-
I had to self-mute it.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm on my phone and the phone said unmute it, and then Zoom remuted on the computer. Okay, so for the best things, we talked about a boss that's mentoring, that looks at, like, also gives you mentoring advice and looks towards your future and how you can improve within the company. A boss with positive feedback, and a boss that provides team effort and teamwork, and that kind of wants to know what you're doing, but not micromanaging all the time. Worst traits are bosses are constantly micromanaging and constantly want to get involved into the projects. Like if you have a supervisor and you work in IT and you're doing a development project and your supervisor isn't a developer, but they want to have rights to develop a project. And then also a boss that constantly questions your judgments and will ask questions on why, and you have to explain everything to them. And then also not seeing the big picture and looking at the small picture of things.
All right. Well, you guys gave us best and worst, so that's a good segue. Why don't we have the next group give characteristics of their worst boss? That will
Sure,
be
so group 5, Anthony, Jeffrey, Catherine, Sarah, Simone. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. So the worst experience with the boss is the whole micromanagement piece. But with that, if the manager or the so-called boss doesn't have an understanding of either some form of project management or understanding of work definition and process definition, then that's always any recipe for disaster for any project. Also, if the person lacks interpersonal skills, and this is the thing that can really make or break you in terms of your career. If you have a bad boss, walk away. That's the best thing you can do to save your career and your sanity. And sometimes it takes a little while to have the tact and the prowess and the finesse in order to do that. But eventually just establish yourself so you can make a graceful exit. Never allow someone who is a small fraction of your life destroy your career or path under any circumstances.
All right, Jeffrey, that was awesome.
Yeah, Michelle, on that point, how do you feel about the old adage of employees don't leave jobs, they leave poor managers?
That's very
that is
true.
absolutely
Very true.
the case.
Absolutely.
Yes. Agreed. Next group.
Okay, group 6, Kathy,
We'll just
David,
pick maybe
Jim,
like
Kyle.
how many groups did we end up having, Matt?
11.
11.
So
So, maybe we'll just go through and you guys just share a couple from each.
Sure.
Who's up next, Matt? Is it 6 or 7?
6, so Kathy, David, Jim, Kyle, Pat, Sean. Okay, we'll come back to
Yep.
group 7, Amy, Elena, Kathy, Felicia, Sarah, Wilhelm.
Hi, I got nominated, so I get to do the speaking. Since we're just doing a couple we'll start with the bad boss because we sort of shifted there. The micromanagement getting in the way kept coming up with us as well. Also, the not paying attention to what has actually transpired and not doing as they say. So that example of like, do as I say, not as I do, where they're not doing what they're saying to do. We echoed a lot of the good traits as well with the communication, the autonomy, trust and autonomy kind of came together for us in terms of a good boss.
Sure. Thank you. That was great.
Okay, then we'll go back to group 6. Kathy, go ahead.
Sure. You hear me okay?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. So we had 4 attributes for a bad boss. That was a bully, demeaning, disrespectful, and manipulative. And for the good boss, open to ideas, makes time for their staff, mentors and encourages them, participate, and sympathetic to the staff.
Awesome. Awesome. Does anyone have any others that have not been mentioned yet?
I have one on,
sorry, go
on
ahead.
worst. Okay, on worst that says not giving credit for the work that's done,
Yeah.
no recognition. Mhm.
Yeah.
Not giving credit. That's
Yeah.
a biggie.
Yeah. And then we had nagging for Team 11 as one that was a prize. We had a slew of them, probably repeated what other groups said, but that was one that didn't come up. Unprofessional as well.
What was that?
Unprofessional for a bad manager. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
And so for a good manager was willing to give up the spotlight. That was one. A great listener, and compassionate, and interested in life work balance.
Awesome.
For group 10, we said that a good boss can make decisions and defend them, and they trust their team enough to delegate work, and they touch base with you regularly about your obstacles and your questions because they're invested in your success. But for the most part, we had a lot of the same things as the other teams.
All right. Thank you. That was awesome.
In our group, which I think was group 9, but I'm not sure, we had a couple of extra ones. So in the good things, we had the agility to be able to personalize, to meet each person at their individual place with where they are. And then in the bad things, we had insecurity in a boss is not a good thing.
Insecurity, sure. All right. Did we hit everyone? Every group?
I think maybe I was in group 8, so
Okay.
we also had a lot of the same things everybody else mentioned. I think one that I didn't hear was a good boss equally weighs the personal and professional qualities in their staff. So they look at people as a whole. And I think one aspect of a bad boss that I didn't really hear, surprising, is they're only focused on the work. So in their mind, the ends justifies the means, that type of attitude.
That's a good ad, Scott, for sure. All right. So I think we got everyone, correct? Yep. So you guys might ask, why did you have to go through that exercise? 1, we got to use the breakout rooms. And number 2, it was really just to reinforce the point that leaders need to be emotionally competent. I think through the entire list, you guys shared a lot of traits, and only once, and I think it might have been Jeffrey, maybe, that had said if an individual doesn't have project management background or project management skills. So that's more related to the technical realm, but everything else that was mentioned really is related to being emotionally competent. So I just wanted to kind of make that point. So next we're going to talk about the top EQ factors for project managers. So I did a little research and found that there are 5 top factors that are associated with being a good project manager. And that is flexibility, the ability to problem solve, independence, impulse control, and self-actualization. Now, for EQ, There are approximately, well, there are exactly 5 composites. So those composites cover things from self-perception, emotional expression, your self-awareness. So it's 5 composites. And then within each of those composites, there are what we call subscales. So what you're seeing here with flexibility, problem solving, independence, and impulse control and self-actualization, those are actually the subscales. So now we're just going to go through each one of those and we're going to talk a little bit about them. So flexibility, now obviously we all can't be as flexible as that young lady on the screen. I wish I could. But that just is an example to show you how you have to keep honing your skills. So let's say a first-time yoga student, right? You're not going to go in and be able to do that. So she's able to achieve that through constant honing of her skills. And so that's what's required for all of your EQ subscales. So flexibility is your ability and tendency to adjust your emotions, thoughts, and behaviors to changing situations and conditions, to be able to take new data in, process that data, and make changes. You're not stuck in any one way or the other. So how this typically shows up, let's say you have low flexibility. You're kind of set in your ways and your opinions, you lack curiosity, very resistant to change, and maybe very slow to start things. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever heard this expression, but your greatest asset can be your greatest ass ache. So with all of these subscales, it is possible to overcompensate. You can overdo some of these subscales as well. So with flexibility, if that were overdone, what would that look like? It would look like more starts than finishes. So you start a lot, but you don't finish very much. Probably very reluctant to stick to a plan, easy to abandon a plan halfway through, and unable to keep commitments because you're so flexible, you're just committing all over the place. And that makes it very difficult to keep those commitments. Next, we're going to talk about problem solving, your ability and tendency to solve problems. And I mean, you guys do a lot of this, but not just solving technical problems. We're talking about solving problems that involve emotions, and also using your emotions to effectively problem solve. So what does that look like when it's underdone? You could be conflict and problem avoidant, unreliable, also a weak or ineffective leader. Now, if problem solving is overdone, what could happen is that you can engage too quickly in problem solving, when sometimes you need to pause and take a step back and reflect a bit. So you could be one of those people who always has the answer to a problem, but yet hasn't really listened or evaluated all of the options for solving that problem. Next, we have independence, which is your ability and tendency to be self-directed in your thinking, your feelings and actions, and to go it alone when you need to. If you're low on independence, it may look like someone who is clingy. It may look like someone who's indecisive, and may look like someone who's just uninformed. Overly independent may look like just emotionally withholding. No one ever really can tell what's on your mind, or you're just kind of emotionally holding back everything. Also, you could appear to be very isolated and detached. So these could be situations where you can observe where someone is just overly independent. I like when we were talking about the characteristics of a good boss. And a few people talked about autonomy, and they talked about being able to, not be micromanaged. So sometimes if you have a high independence, then you're definitely a little more isolated and detached from the situation. Next, impulse control. And, we've all had that quintessential time when, we said something we shouldn't have, we sent an email that we shouldn't have. So impulse control obviously is extremely important. And with all of these subscales, it doesn't mean that you're going to, execute them flawlessly all the time. It's really just about checking into your feelings and honing those skills. So if you lack impulse control, we all know what that kind of looks like. People who are explosive, overly talkative, they interrupt people all the time, maybe short-fused. So those are some of the aspects of someone with low impulse control. Now, someone with high impulse control, you're probably thinking, well, why would that be a problem? Someone with high impulse control could actually be overly structured. So everything has to be structured down to a T. And so they're typically not the type of individual who's going to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Who's going to have spontaneity. They'll be overly structured and they want everything done a certain way or within their parameters. The next subscale is self-actualization. And this is actually one that I probably should have put first, because this is about your ability to grow and strive and learn new things and set goals for yourself and work towards bettering yourself and towards fulfillment. It's really difficult to achieve success in any of these subscales if you don't have self-actualization. If you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization was at the very top.
What?
Someone may need to mute themselves. Can you all hear me?
Yep, sure can. Sorry about that.
Okay, all right. And so for someone who has low self-actualization, what does that look like? They're kind of bored, uninspired, maybe even a little lazy, and closed to learning and development. So typically that individual would have no goals, not a lot of interest, haven't really developed any hobbies or things like that. So that's what a low self-actualization would look like. And if you had very high self-actualization, like overdone self-actualization, you will always be dissatisfied with the status quo. Nothing is ever good enough. And you may even be, in fact, overly goal-driven. So any questions about those 5?
I think you were talking about Maslow, but I couldn't hear the end of that phrase.
Sure. I was saying how in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization is right there at the top. And so I was saying that I probably should have started with that one first, because it's very difficult to manage any of the other subscales if you don't like yourself, if you don't think highly of yourself, if you don't have the ability to, create goals and strive to learn new things. So self-actualization is extremely important. Did that help?
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else? Any questions about those 5? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. Now you're going to be tested. So what we're going to do next is another breakout. And what I want to do is I'm going to divide you all up. Well, Matt's going to divide you up into 5 groups. And so that means there's a lot of people in a group, but there's 5 subscales. And so what I want to do is assign each group a subscale. And I think group number 1 is flexibility, if I'm not mistaken. Group number 2 is, do you have the list, Matt?
Yep. Yep, so one's flexibility, 2 is problem solving, 3 is independence, 4 is impulse control, and 5 is self actualization. We'll post this in the chat to everyone, so.
Yep. So what I want you to do is divide into your subscales and talk about ideas on how you could improve. How could someone improve in that area? So just come up with a few things and then identify the top 3 for the individual subscale group that you're in. So again, we want you to discuss what are some ideas on how you could improve in that particular area, how you or someone else could improve that particular subscale. And you'll have 10 minutes and you'll be beamed up shortly.
Yep. Yep, looks that way, man.
Okay. Matt, how are we doing on time?
About 10 minutes and then allow for questions.
Okay, great. Okay, who wants to report out group 1, flexibility? What are some of the things you can suggest for someone with either low or high flexibility?
Well, our group decided that someone who, if you want to improve your flexibility, you should throw yourself into something you've never done before. Deviate from the plan on purpose so you can try someone else's way and you can see that other people's ways of doing things work. And also to have a mindset that you don't know everything. So always keep that, top of mind.
Okay, great. So you gave them for high and low. Love that. Excellent. Thank you. Group 2.
All right. For group 2, we listed a couple items for how to improve problem solving, problem analysis, root cause analysis, diagramming, selecting the optimum algorithm or solution. So looking at multiple solutions and selecting the best one. Expert analysis, so utilizing expert resources to help with the problem. Brainstorming, looking back at lessons learned, using scientific methods, and prototyping.
All right, great. Thank you. Next, group 3.
I don't think we selected a spokesman, but I will speak. Ours was independence.
Yes.
And we talked about to lessen people who are independent. Those people need to learn how to ask for help more often and to delegate. And people who are less inclined to be independent, be curious, try new things, not be afraid of making mistakes and make some mistakes and learn from them. And then someone mentioned mentoring can help you become more independent or lessen your independence, and being more collaborative can help on both ends as well, because collaborating can help you think different in a different way and become more independent, but it can also help you build confidence in hearing different ways that people and learning different ways that people think.
Sure, excellent. Group 4.
Hi.
I was in group 4.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Karen from group 4. And we had impulse control. Kind of the top one was try to step back and count to 10. de-escalate the situation. One of the other things that was mentioned I thought was really good was trying to scan your body and think, why am I feeling a certain way? What's causing that feeling? And what would I need to do to change that? Also, there was the suggestion about, sometimes people have too much impulse control, and that it's challenging to engage them or bring them back into a team or a meeting. And then perhaps some of the techniques would be to ask questions, clarifying questions to help understand the situation, or engage them more specifically in defined topics.
Thank you. And then finally, self-actualization.
Hello, I'm speaking for my group. We had a great discussion. We decided that the top three, very broad three, are clear understanding of the desired endpoint and planning with that clear understanding of the endpoint in mind, a realistic plan with milestones and realistic milestones and measurements along the way, accountability through transparency and/or an accountability partner, and focus on starting, because starting is sometimes the hardest thing to do. So your planning has to enable a quick start. Baby steps if necessary, right? And then while you're executing this plan, being mindful of those around you and yourself, your feelings, and having empathy, and not beating yourself up if you've missed a deadline, and not beating anyone else up either, and taking other people's feelings into account. And we all liked the Maya Angelou quote, people won't remember what you did and said, they'll remember how you made them feel. So have a clear destination in mind, have a plan for how to get there with realistic milestones, accountability, and all the while, and make sure you start well, and all the while take into account other people's and your own feelings.
Awesome, great job. Great job. All right, anyone have any questions about the activity? How'd you guys feel about that?
It was fun.
Yeah, it was great. It was good. Good conversation.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent.
Very good.
And no questions? Any questions about the subscales there?
Mm-mm.
All right. Well, then we'll keep moving along here. We're almost done. We're almost there.
I have one question.
Sure.
How do you address when you're talking about reading emotions, misreading?
Yes.
When you think the person is and they're not, and you react or use some of the tools we talked about for one thing when it's really something else. And how do you address that or manage that, or is that even a thing if you are EQ? I don't know.
That's okay. Let me make sure I understand your question. You want to know, so how do you read someone's emotions?
Yeah, that would be the first thing. And then if you're doing that, or you think you're reading somebody's emotions, but you've misread them actually.
Yes.
So therefore you are using tools to address one thing, and in fact, something else is happening in that emotional moment or whatever.
Right. That's when it's very important to ask clarifying questions.
Okay.
So that way, if there's no misperception, and I would say that that's probably one of the first things that you should do, kind of restate what you think you heard, or restate what the person said to you, and just reframe it. Just kind of say, hey, I want to make sure I understand. So I think it's very important to start with those questions first before you begin kind of addressing the problem, because you may not know what the problem is, or you may have the problem totally wrong.
But it's not so much I'm talking about the emotion though, because we're talking about using tools to apply flexibility, problem solving, independence, and those kinds of things. And we talked about how that shows up, right?
Yes.
So you think you're addressing that, or you think you're being emotionally intelligent around whatever you're reading in the situation, but you totally misread it.
But are you suggesting misreading, like you're not knowing yourself or knowing the other person?
Yeah, the other person. Yeah.
Other person. Yes. Again, it's really the asking the questions,
Okay.
clarifying.
Okay.
Yeah.
So staying in the moment and realizing that this is not going anywhere, so perhaps it's wrong. And
right.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Stay present.
Yep.
And ask those clarifying questions.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else? Okay, so I just want to touch on something else real quickly, and it's about a new kind of intelligence that's coming out that has some professional currency now, and it's called collaborative intelligence. So this is something new that's on the horizon, and as I think about where we are today in our society and the need to collaborate, the need to collaborate virtually, the need to collaborate in person, everything is very much project oriented now. So being able to use that as currency in the workplace and at home. So how do you do that? So you have to know how to cultivate different perspectives, which means being around people who don't necessarily agree with you. Eliminate the either or thinking. Question yourself, play devil's advocate, put yourself on the other side and see what that feels like. And still using your gut, using intuition and logic. And so if you think about the people that you're around, like perhaps the people that you spend a lot of time with at work, or your spouse or your children, you really need to cultivate an environment where there are different perspectives so that you will learn how to collaborate and take all of these things into consideration. Because it's almost like it's like mind sharing. And when you do that, you can in fact grow your ideas and you come up with really awesome things that you couldn't have come up by yourself. And always try to seek like a win-win. So even when people have different perspectives, it's really important to, when you're trying to give us a solution or to collaborate on something, think about it not just from your perspective. Think about if you have a perspective, but what is the other perspective? And perhaps there's a solution where you both win. So those are some of the key things about collaboration. And oftentimes what I see now is, it doesn't matter whether you live in the same house with everyone who always agrees with you, or you never kind of stretch your mind to be with or talk to other people that have opposing views. That is how you can really stretch that. That's how you can learn to be more collaborative. Taking in information from all types of sources is extremely important. Any questions about collaborative intelligence?
This is Wesley Wright. Our company put on some courses recently, and one of them was in collaboration. And the aim of the collaboration training was to develop a growth mindset.
Yes. And
that has been, the growth mindset has been some kind of a buzzword in our organization for the last couple of months. I think it has been working pretty well.
Awesome. Good to hear. So as you can see, based on Wesley, it's certainly making its way into the workplace. And that is a buzz term, growth mindset, and also mind share. Those are two of the typical terms that reference collaborative intelligence. So thank you. Thanks for that, Wesley. Any other questions or comments?
I like what you're saying about kind of like healthy disagreement, but I find I work for the government and I find that people almost never will disagree publicly with the boss, because a lot of times people are fighting for scarce resources and they want to get on the boss's good side. And I always try to say that in meetings, we should spend, a few minutes talking about the pros of something and a few minutes talking about the cons, so that we actually get it all out there. But it just seems like the people that are interested in getting close to the boss, they agree right off the bat, and then everyone jumps on that bandwagon. And then if you're the person who disagrees, you look like a traitor or a fool. You know, it's difficult.
Yeah, I would agree, Karen. But one thing that I would say in that particular situation, that particular agency or the group, they're not really a EQ organization, right? Because if you are in a emotionally competent organization, they want to foster differences of opinion. They want people to be able to express themselves and not feel that, you know, and I'm going to say something stupid, they should be really pulling it out of people. You know, hey, anyone's got an opposing view, anyone have any other ideas? And so one of the things that you can do tonight is really to, you know, when you go back to your workplace, think about some of the things we've discussed and, you know, kind of gaze your workplace and ask, is it a workplace that is emotionally competent?
There's a good question in the chat. Lanai asked the question.
Okay, I don't.
How, I'll just read it for you. How can you be independent but flexible at the same time? I was curious about your answer, so I figured I would share.
Sure. So how can you be independent and flexible at the same time? So independence is really just having your own particular thought, right? Your own mindset, and being able to step away from it when it's, you know, being flexible enough, right? Being flexible enough to know that there are potentially other alternatives, right? So, you know, I don't think that I don't think that it has to be either or. I think you definitely can be both, but you can still be independent and be flexible, because you may have a mindset about something that's your personal core value, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you have to do out in the world, right? Or for a particular situation. So you have to be flexible in situations. However, you're still independent. You have your core beliefs and your core thoughts. And one of the prime things about independence is being able to break away from the pack when it's necessary. So you wouldn't be doing that all the time, I guess. I guess it would depend on what kind of group you're in. But that is really the factor of being able to go it alone. And I don't really mean go it alone in a project or anything like that, but just not falling into that group thing. Does that help? Anything else?
Hi, Michelle. This is Erin. I guess along the lines of maybe not taking things too far, I think it went with a subskill of impulse control.
Mm-hmm.
If you have any tips on tactfully saying no, you know, maybe not taking it too far and over committing yourself.
So I would say that's certainly associated with impulse control. That's associated with flexibility. And that's definitely associated with independence, right? Because sometimes you're accepting assignments or accepting things that you don't necessarily want to do or are committed to doing. So I would say in order to flex that muscle, right? It's going to be really important to think before you commit, right? And because oftentimes people just kind of, yeah, I'll do it. And then afterwards they go, oh goodness. Most people don't commit to something if they really don't want to do it. Sometimes people are selected to do things that they really don't want to do. But it's going to be really important to practice and flex that muscle of just saying no. And it could start with something small. And that's what you really got to do. Start with small things. And if you start with small things, you'll eventually be able to say no to the big things. So start with, hey, what do you want? Chicken for dinner? No, I don't. I don't want chicken for dinner. You know, so you can just start with things like that. And that will certainly help exercise that muscle.
Appreciate your thoughts. Thank you.
So I know you impressed a lot of people tonight. What type of coaching do you do? Do you take on individual clients? Do you work more with companies on seminars and things of that nature? How can we find you for anyone who's interested?
Well, I do individual coaching primarily, and I also administer EQ assessments for companies and individuals, but typically there are organizations that are paying for that. And then also providing the feedback and doing 360s as well. I think you guys are probably familiar with the 360 feedback tool, which is just another EQ tool, by the way. And so I do that as well. And you can, my email information, everything I think was in the bio, so you can feel free to share that with everyone.
Great.
And so just really quick, I just want to say, you know, like, what can you do next? And all I'm suggesting is that pay more attention to your emotions and the emotions of others. You know, there's like a list of, there's so many varied emotions. And oftentimes we're just quick to put something into a good category or a bad category. But there's a whole range of emotions. So start being a little more in tune to that. Even just start at home and identify a couple of the subscales that we talked about, or even if, you know, I'm gonna drop I'm gonna give it to you, Matt, some information about the entire list of subscales. Identify a couple of subscales and start working on them a little bit at a time. Keep a diary or journal about your insights, because I think you'll find that you'll see a lot of changes, both at work and at home. And then also consider taking the EQ assessment. It gives you a tremendous amount of feedback. It gives you your ranges, you know, what the normal range is, what a high, low. So it's a very helpful tool in helping you know which areas you need to focus on. And finally, metaphorically, IQ allows you to enter the elevator, but it is EQ. It is EQ that will fuel your elevator's upward trajectory. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention tonight. I'm sorry we had a few technical difficulties there. I'm used to doing a lot of things in person, not necessarily virtual with such a large group, but I really appreciate your time and attention.
Yep, and thank you, Michelle, both for your time tonight, your preparation, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Have a great night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Excellent.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.